The tournament that just finished was probably the worst one I can remember, because neither the men's final nor the women's final could be played. But on the other hand, the tournament in Chile was the fastest in Premier Padel history. The speed of the court has sparked many criticisms from players, and the numbers we're about to see don't lie. And with the loss in the round of 16, it confirms the worst start of the season since Coello and Tapia team up. So I was wondering, is the number one in danger? Can Tapia recover from his injury? Hello everyone, I'm Pablo and I welcome you to a new 4Set. There are two pairs that didn't start the year off well, and coincidentally they were the last to register for the next major in Doha, triggering many alarms about possible changes. On one hand, there's Garrido and Yanguas, who started the year just 185 points behind the 4th place Coello and Yanguas pair, but now the gap was widened to over 1000 points. So Javi and Martin are trying everything, and after Riyadh they decided to change coaches and bet on Rodri Ovide, just like I did in Wings to Pro. Up until this Chile tournament they had only lost to higher ranked pairs, Galan and Stupa Lebron, both times in the quarterfinals. However, in Chile they suffered the worst result, a loss in the round of 16 against the 21st ranked pair Victor Ruiz and Chisco Gil. It's surprising, especially considering that the court conditions were more favorable for a player style like Javi's than in Miami. They will be back competing in Doha in the first major of the season, where Javi reached the final with Yanguas last year. A poor result there could be key to both of their aspirations this season, but as the Neno shows on his Instagram, he's not giving up. Another pair having a rough start this season is Paquito and Bergamini. They came off a head-to-head battle in Miami against Coello and Tapia, but their kryptonite right now seems to be Tello and Livac. They already lost to them in the round of 16 in Riyadh, and history repeats itself in Chile, although it's true that the court conditions were much more favorable for Tello and Livac. And you might call me crazy, but I have a lot of faith in Paquito Bergamini, especially in a medium to slow tournament. But beyond my faith, though, losing in the round of 16 and the quarterfinal is not normal for a player like Paco, so we will see what happens in Doha. And it's not a secret if you didn't know already, but the Chile tournament is the fastest in Premier Padel history. This has drawn a lot of criticisms because for many people, myself included, it's too fast. Bergamini even joked that he's capable of smashing from the baseline, and also explained the tournament's main issue, the ball. They are playing with the Head Padel Pro Plus ball, which, although it's head slow ball, might be too fast for these conditions. And perhaps the problem, as Berga says, is that the PPA has no say in the choice of ball. Add to that the 950 meters of altitude and moments when the temperatures hit 23 Celsius is practically unplayable. And Padel Intelligence provides several key statistics to show just how crazy this Chile court has been. First, Santiago is the court with the highest number of winners relative to total shots. Second, only Valladolid has a higher smash per love percentage than Santiago. Third, Santiago is the tournament where points last the shortest, an average of 6.55 shots. And fourth, only Valladolid has fewer loves than Santiago, but keep in mind that Santiago is an outdoor tournament and Valladolid is indoor, so it's easier to hit a love over your opponent. So considering these stats and what we saw on court, I don't know what you think, but I didn't like it at all. And the players were very constrained, unable to hit a love and forced to play everything low and into the net. In fact, Augsburger hit a wall-to-wall shot, Lebron smashed close to the glass like in 2019, Bergamini smashed from the baseline, so we saw things that are not normal. To be honest, I do like fast courts, but in my opinion this one went too far. Also, it's true that when night fell, the court slowed down and it felt more like paddle. And if there's one pair that excels on fast courts, though they're also good on slow ones, is Coello and Tapia. And that is why no one expected what actually happened in Chile, especially since it was held in the same venue where 2 years ago Coello and Tapia did something unique, winning 2 finals. And in fact, they also won in Chile last year, but this year they couldn't get past the round of 16. Remember that they lost 300 days after the last time before a final last week, and Coello and Tapia hadn't lost before the quarterfinals in 533 days at World Padel Tour Amsterdam 2023 against Arroyo Rubio. Moreover, they had only lost once again before the quarters at World Padel Tour Finland 2023 against Bergamini Ruiz. But this time it was against Augsburger Cardona, and with this loss in the round of 16, it confirms the worst season start since Coello and Tapia team up. Though that was not too surprising, as previous years had seen impressive starts. So to give more context to Coello and Tapia's surprising loss, in all of 2024, out of 21 tournaments, they only failed to reach the final in Sevilla. But in 2025, out of 3 tournaments so far, they've only reached 1 final. Analyzing the Padel Intelligence data from the match, it was incredible fast, with 1 shot less per point than the tournament average. What really surprised me was that Coello only attempted 3 smashes while Tapia went for 18, Augsburger 16 and Cardona 15. Throughout the match, Coello and Tapia didn't secure a single break point, and the benches were buzzing with comments that both Leo and Pablo were simply superior.
Volveremos a entrenar cada día más y entrenaremos a dar hostia. Ya digo, pero digo, lo peor que puede ser que no haya presión de perder. Vamos a jugar al pádel ahora. Vuelcas mejor,
no, pero no es que vuelcas mejor, la volea no es que sea una verga.
voleas mejor.
No, la volea no es que sea una verga todas. Después me tira de pedo.
Parece que no, parece que es suerte, pero
no, la tiran. La tiran.
No hay suerte aquí, Están jugando mejores.
Sí,
mucho mejor.
Están jugando mejor, pero nosotros la volea.
Desde hace rato.
La volea nuestra es una cagada, literal.
La mía, sobre todo.
Los dos, este está voleando recontrapasado. Vente en presión volumen, las patas arriba de la red.
Ahora sí que está claro una cosa. Si entramos ahí ahora,
no, arranquen.
A morir.
It's unusual to see a pair that after losing still speak to each other amicably. Because when Tapia missed the final ball, Agus and Arturo embrace, and I like to think they exchange some kind words. But they cannot get relaxed because in the race both Stupa, Lebron and Galan are ahead by a significant margin. And for them the Doha Major is even more crucial, especially since they're defending 2,000 points from last year. They will have almost 15 days to get back into competition, and we will see if Tapia can fully recover from that right hand discomfort. Those who are nearly at their best are clearly Augsburger Cardona, who managed something no one else has, being the first pair to beat Coello and Tapia and Galan. Also, the only top 3 pair that managed to resist despite having breakpoints in their favor is Stupa Lebron. But the good news is that they're very close to breaking into the top 8 pairs in the ranking, overtaking Alex Arroyo and Edu Alonso. And Pablo Cardona, after beating Coello and Tapia, couldn't hold back and share his thoughts on Leo Augsburger on X. But if in the round of 16 they reached glory by defeating Coello Tapia, in the quarterfinals they couldn't beat Tello Livac. Actually, none of the pairs had their coaches with them because they were sharing partners, and I think Leo and Pablo noticed them the most. But the undisputed MVP was Tello, especially when you look at the Padel Intelligence stats. El Gato is back in his prime with Livac, and he even dedicated these words.
Esta sonrisa la vengo buscando hace un año entero. Tengo muchas ganas de competir. Ahora tengo una bestia al lado. 19 años tiene solo, así que tengo que aprovecharlo. Este viejo de 30 sigue todavía corriendo y luchando, así que feliz, lo que te digo. Vengo hace mucho tiempo con ganas de competir y sé que con esta bestia podemos batir a todos.
Tello didn't reach the semifinals since 2023 with Alex Ruiz. So alongside him is one of the next players expected to be number 1, and he's taking full advantage to unleash his best game. But it is true that Livac was not at his best in the semis. Because if you look at the Padel Intelligence performance graph, you can clearly see that from the 3rd set on, Tino couldn't keep up due to physical discomfort. Also in that semis match, Juan Lebron's performance was the most notable. He had 28 winners and only 12 unforced errors, making him the best by far in that match. And I don't know what you all think, but the benches for Lebron, Stupa and Pozzoni trio are becoming the highlight of the season. And if you don't believe me, check out this moment.
Si vos te morís, yo voy detrás tuya, ¿vale? Yo voy detrás tuya.
Yo no,
Yo sí. Yo
menos, Buena cero.
Con mi compañero muerto.
And the bond in that trio is so strong that even when Stupa was having a terrible day, Lebron was there to help him.
Bajaron un poquito.
15-40, 15-14.
That match was against Tolito and Gonza Alfonso, and note that Los Mágicos managed to win a set against Lebron and Stupa. It is true that after losing that set, Stupa and Lebron managed to impose their game, but are Tolito and Gonza ready to compete against the best pairs? Because I don't know about you, but I had a really good feeling about that match, and slowly they look more comfortable with the pace of the top pairs. So can you imagine one of them playing with someone from the top 10? Imagine for example a Paquito Tolito, that would be epic. But putting that aside, Stupa and Lebron would reach the final after the semis against Tello Libac. Likewise, Galan would reach the final against Yanguas and Koki just 1 week after that epic Miami match. So Chingotto and Galan reached the final as the most reliable pair of all, with 0 sets lost throughout the tournament, showing a level of superiority that's downright intimidating. And perhaps part of that superiority is due to Fede's charm, his father's lucky charm, who used to open up alongside Galan talking about Chingo.
Yo tengo una admiración, pero más allá del orgullo, porque él se hizo solo después. Cuando charlamos íntimamente se lo digo, porque me superó como persona. Me superó, yo creo que es mucha más persona que yo y logró objetivos que yo capaz que no lo hubiera podido lograr por mi forma de ser y mi forma de pensar. Muchas veces hubo un tiempo en Argentina que no pasábamos cuartos, o sea, era ir a Tucumán, que son 1500 kilómetros, 2000 kilómetros, y el sábado a la tarde estaba a la vuelta.
De hecho, bueno, de momento está siendo nuestro amuleto, le quiero un montón, cada vez que ganamos me dice mi hijo grandote, y cada jugador necesita estar feliz, y eso es lo que somos Fede y yo desde que nos juntamos. Nos disfrutamos mucho en cancha, disfrutamos mucho fuera, somos una familia y nada, yo creo que por eso estamos jugando también.
But a new final between Lebron and Galan was coming, the 5th time they faced each other since they split. Before the Santiago final, the score was 4-0 in favor of Galan. And I don't know if I'm the only one who noticed that Juan seems overly eager to play against Sale, maybe even excessively so. It was evident during the Miami warm-up, but Santiago was a whole different story. But what was clear is that both pairs benefited greatly from Coello and Tapia's loss, because right now they're the top 2 pairs in the race and are starting to close the gap in the ranking, especially Chingalan. The next tournament in Doha could be very important as it's the first major of the season, so if Coello Tapia's losing streak continues there, and if Chingalan or Stupa Lebron get a good result, things could get tense. In fact, I will be in Doha to watch the tournament and use the opportunity to train for Wings to Pro. So along with Wibora, we've created a travel package for anyone who wants to experience the best paddle up close. You can check the description for more info. And stay tuned because more trips to tournaments like Rome, Malaga, Madrid or Barcelona are on the way. But after the tournament in Riyadh was delayed by 2 days due to rain, the finals in Chile were postponed by 1 day. But when no one thought it could get any worse, it finally happened, because neither the men's final nor the women's final could be played. Stupa was sidelined before the matches even started due to a feverish condition, so Chingalan were automatically crowned champions without playing. Actually, Stupa said it hurts so much not to be able to play the final today. I've tried my best to recover, but I'm not in a condition to compete. And as life would have it, if Stupa had been able to play, the story would have been very different. Because the women's final did start and the match was tied 1-1 in sets when the humidity forced play to stop. So at the end the final was suspended and both pairs split the points and the prize money. So if Stupa had been healthy, the split would have been equitable between Chingalan and Stupa Lebron. But obviously what matters most is that he recovers as soon as possible. So this way Chingalan moves into the second place in the race, still 220 points behind Stupa Lebron, who are first. And the bad news, even if by chance, is the chaos caused by the bad weather in yet another tournament. Because honestly I really like outdoor tournaments, but I understand there is a risk factor, and in this season starts, luck has not been on our side. But yeah, this has been the fastest tournament in Premier Padel history. Do you think Coello and Tapia could lose the top spot this season? Well, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and thank you so much for watching the video. See you in the next one.